What would you do if your best friend suddenly accused you of witchcraft? Imagine living in a town where a single whisper could lead to your death. The Salem Witch Trials were a terrifying chapter in American history where fear and superstition overtook reason and no one was safe from accusation. In the late 1600s, in the small Puritan village of Salem, Massachusetts, an eerie hysteria swept through the community. Friends turned on friends, neighbors accused neighbors, and even family members were not spared from suspicion. Young girls claimed to be possessed by the devil, and their wild accusations fueled a frenzy that spread like wildfire. It wasn't just the fear of witches, it was the fear of the unknown, of something that could strike anyone, anywhere. But how did a seemingly peaceful town descend into chaos and paranoia? What triggered this mass hysteria, and why were so many people so willing to believe that their loved ones were consorting with the devil? The Salem Witch Trials were not just about superstition. They were a complex web of fear, power, and politics. Land disputes, religious conflicts, and personal vendettas all played a role in the deadly witch hunt. Ministers, judges, and everyday citizens became part of a deadly game where the rules were driven by fear and suspicion. This wasn't just about witches. It was about control, power, and fear of the unknown. Could such a phenomenon occur again? In today's world, where misinformation and fear can spread faster than ever before, are we really safe from such hysteria? Join us as we uncover the chilling events that turned Salem into a hotbed of accusations, trials, and executions, and explore what we can learn from this tragic episode in history. As winter gripped the small, tight-knit community of Salem in 1692, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The villagers, isolated from the rest of the world, were deeply religious, and their Puritan beliefs permeated every aspect of their lives. It was a society ripe for paranoia and fear, where the unknown could easily be seen as a sign of the devil's work. But why did these accusations of witchcraft begin in the first place? It all started with a group of young girls in Salem Village. They began to act strangely, screaming, convulsing, and claiming to see visions of spectral figures. The town's minister, Reverend Samuel Parris, was at a loss. With no rational explanation, the finger quickly pointed to the supernatural. Who could be causing such distress to these innocent girls? Driven by fear and a fervent desire to find someone to blame, the accusations began to fly. At first, it was easy to target those on the fringes of society. Tituba, a Caribbean slave, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly woman who hadn't attended church in some time. But the accusations didn't stop there. Like a spark in a dry forest, the hysteria spread rapidly. Friends, neighbors, even respected members of the community found themselves accused of witchcraft. What fueled this frenzy? Was it truly fear of the devil or something deeper? A chance to settle old scores, gain power, or divert attention from personal sins? As the accusations grew, so did the chaos, and Salem was on the brink of tearing itself apart. But what would happen when the accused began to fight back? As the accusations multiplied, Salem descended into a full-blown witch hunt. The once peaceful village was now a hotbed of fear and suspicion. Every cough, every twitch, every odd behavior was scrutinized for signs of witchcraft. The Puritan community, already strict and watchful, turned even more inward, suspecting their own neighbors, friends, and even family members. The afflicted girls became the stars of the courtroom, their every word taken as gospel. They would writhe and scream, claiming to see the specters of those accused tormenting them. Their testimonies, filled with vivid descriptions of black figures, strange apparitions, and spectral attacks, captivated the townsfolk and fueled the panic. The fear of the devil was now a tangible, everyday terror, lurking in the shadows of Salem's homes and churches. And then there were the methods used to identify the so-called witches. Touch tests, where the accused would be made to touch the afflicted girls to see if their symptoms stopped, were common. There were also witch cakes baked with the urine of the afflicted and fed to dogs in a bizarre attempt to reveal the witches' identities. The evidence was flimsy, the accusations often baseless, but logic and reason had long been abandoned. As the hysteria spread, no one was safe. Prominent church members, landowners, and even the wife of the village's minister found themselves accused. The fear was palpable. It clung to the air like the smoke from the fires where the accused were burned. How could anyone defend themselves against such baseless claims? And more importantly, who would dare? But as more and more people were accused, cracks began to show in the facade of righteousness. Doubts crept in. Was everyone who was accused truly guilty, or had the village lost its way in its quest for purity and justice? With the village engulfed in panic, the trials began in earnest. The courtroom became a stage where the unimaginable was played out, day after day. Judge Samuel Sewall and his fellow magistrates listened intently as the afflicted girls recounted their tales of spectral torment. No evidence was too far-fetched, no accusation too outrageous. The testimonies were enough to condemn men and women, some of whom had lived in the community for years without incident. One by one, the accused were brought before the court. Some wept, others maintained their innocence with a stoic silence. But a few, under immense pressure, confessed to witchcraft, perhaps believing it was their only chance at salvation, or, at the very least, a delay of their execution. These confessions, often extracted through coercion or in the hope of mercy, only served to fuel the paranoia. If they could admit to being witches, people thought, who among us might also be guilty? The trials were swift, brutal, and often lacked any semblance of fairness. Hearsay and spectral evidence, where the accusers claimed to see the spirits of the accused committing heinous acts, were deemed admissible. The most infamous execution came with the hanging of Rebecca Nurse, a respected elderly woman whose conviction shocked the community. But by then, the frenzy had a momentum all its own. 19 people were hanged, one man was pressed to death under heavy stones, and several others died in jail awaiting trial. As the executions continued, the sense of dread in Salem deepened. Families were torn apart, reputations shattered. The gallows stood as a grim reminder of the chaos that had gripped the town. But could this madness continue forever? What would it take to end the nightmare that Salem had become? By the autumn of 1692, the hysteria that had consumed Salem began to wane. People started to question the validity of the trials, and doubt spread like a ripple through the village. How could so many people be guilty of such an unthinkable crime? The spectral evidence, once so compelling, now seemed flimsy and unreliable. A collective sense of guilt began to emerge, and the town's conscience weighed heavy with the realization of what had been done in the name of justice. Governor William Phips, disturbed by the chaos and realizing that the trials had gone too far, intervened. He dissolved the Court of Oyer and Terminer, which had been responsible for the trials, and later prohibited further arrests. Slowly, the madness that had gripped the community began to subside, but the damage was done. The once close-knit community of Salem was left to reckon with the scars of its own making. The aftermath saw a slow, painful attempt at reconciliation. Families of the accused sought to clear the names of their loved ones. Ministers, who had once preached the righteousness of the trials, began to express regret. In 1697, a day of fasting and soul-searching was declared, a public admission of guilt and a plea for divine forgiveness. But could apologies truly undo the harm that had been done? Could any words bring back the lives that were lost? And what of the lessons learned? The Salem Witch Trials would be remembered as a dark chapter in American history, a cautionary tale about the dangers of fear, superstition, and the perils of mass hysteria. Today, the Salem Witch Trials serve as a powerful reminder of what can happen when fear and paranoia are allowed to override reason and justice. They have been depicted in countless books, movies, and plays, most famously in Arthur Miller's The Crucible, a powerful allegory for the McCarthy-era witch hunts of the 1950s. The trials remind us of the dangers of scapegoating and the importance of due process and critical thinking, values that resonate deeply in today's world of rapid information and misinformation. Could something like the Salem Witch Trials happen again? It's a question worth pondering. The lessons of Salem are not just historical curiosities. They are urgent reminders of the need for vigilance against the forces of fear and division. As we look back on this dark episode, we must ask ourselves, what kind of society do we want to be? One driven by fear and paranoia, or one guided by reason and justice? The choice is ours to make. If you found this exploration of the Salem Witch Trials intriguing, Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's most captivating events.